As fires continue to burn through the West Coast and cause devastation to people living in the area, the right wing has unfortunately exploited the tragedy to push through anti-leftist propaganda. One of the conspiracy theories you may have come across on social media is this notion that the fires were actually started by leftist activists. Now, that has been debunked several times, but unfortunately it wasn't debunked aggressively enough before Joe Rogan said this on his show.
I actually love Portland. It's one of my favorite places to perform. Most of the people there are very nice, but there's a madness going on there. You want to talk about madness of crowds? That exemplifies that right now. And it's to me, they've arrested people for lighting forest fires up there. They've arrested left-wing people for lighting these forest fires, air quote activists. And this is something that's also not widely being reported, that people have actually been arrested for lighting fires up there. This is, I don't know what, if I would love to talk to the mayor and say, what is your strategy for ending this? Are you hoping this is just going to die down? Because these people want your head. And they want blood, and they don't seem to be willing to settle for anything less.
There are two types of people who spread misinformation, okay? There are people who intentionally do it, thus spreading disinformation. And then there are people like Rogan, where I think intentions matter, and he got it wrong. He did apologize, so I wanna make sure you guys know, he didn't intentionally spread this type of anti-leftist propaganda. He took credit for it. Let's go to his apology, the last two graphics here. He said, I effed up on the podcast with Douglas Murray and said that people got arrested lighting fires in Portland. That turns out not to be true. I was very irresponsible not looking into it before. I repeated it. I read one story about a guy getting arrested for lighting fires, turned out to be true. But the other I read about people getting arrested for lighting fires in Portland was not true. I repeated it without looking into it, and it was a really effed up, stupid mistake. That won't happen again. I'm sorry. Okay, so that was a great apology. Okay, he took responsibility. It was an unequivocal apology. So let's just get that out of the way. This story isn't so much about Joe Rogan as it is about how incredibly successful propagandist organizations like Turning Point USA are at just publishing anything, like the most outlandish lies about people, about leftists, about protesters, about BLM. And even someone like Joe Rogan, who should be aware of these types of disinformation campaigns, who should be aware of things like fake news, still just kind of takes it at face value and regurgitates it on a show where millions of people are listening. It kind of blows my mind. But I do want to go to all the different ways the story was debunked, even before he apologized. Rogan apologized for the misinformation on his show. So the FBI in Portland actually had to debunk this on Twitter, writing, reports that extremists are setting fires in Oregon are untrue. Help us stop the spread of misinformation by only sharing information from trusted official sources. Their second tweet about this says, conspiracy theories and misinformation take valuable resources away from local fire and police agencies working around the clock to bring these fires under control. Please help our entire community by only sharing validated information from official sources. Even local police departments, by the way, in Oregon had to respond to these conspiracy theories because they were getting such a high volume of calls. And so they put out a statement, rumors spread just like wildfire, and now our 911 dispatchers and professional staff are being overrun with requests for information and inquiries on an untrue rumor that 6 Antifa members have been arrested for setting fires in Douglas County, Oregon. Read a Facebook post from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in Oregon. This is not true. And then there's the Jackson County Sheriff's Office in Oregon also posted, we are inundated with questions about things that are fake stories. One example is a story circulating that varies about what group is involved as to setting fires and arrests being made. So again, it's been debunked. And I mentioned Turning Point USA for a reason, because a tweet from a self-described representative for conservative youth group Turning Point USA, which has been shared about 2,900 times, said the fires were allegedly linked to Antifa and the riots. As we know, that's not true. But Nando, I mean, I don't know what the right response is, right? Because even well-meaning people, they just fall for it. Yeah. And it gets repeated, regurgitated. No one questions anything. No one's ever skeptical of things like this. They just accept it at face value because the right is really good at propaganda and controlling a narrative.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. You know, Joe Rogan has had on his show a guy named Tom O'Neill who wrote a book called Chaos, which was all about, you know, it started off as an investigation into the Manson murders, but then really became a story about how the FBI and the CIA and local police departments work together to basically infiltrate left-wing groups and create panic and hysteria over them. You know, so you would think that he could see this coming from a mile away. I mean, this was so obviously untrue that even the FBI is denying it. Like the FBI denying like left-wing shenanigans, like should tell you that this is like insanely untrue, right? I mean, the FBI would be happy to pin the wildfires on Antifa, you know, like they should love to do that. But this, like, this story holds absolutely no water. And you would think, you know, like that's what's frustrating about someone like Rogan is that it's like, he's agreed, well-meaning and very integral, I find, and honest in his apology kind of reflects that. Like no one, like no cable news host would have that kind of mea culpa for screwing up big time. I mean, it happens all the time, but they never kind of admit something like this. Like, I mean, he was just completely like no excuses. But he does fall for this kind of thing of just believing whatever the latest thing he heard without, you know, really kind of thinking too much about it beyond whatever the latest thing he heard is, you know. So yeah, you know, it's frustrating and like what the reality is that most people just aren't equipped to deal with misinformation and propaganda, which is why we have to find some sort of solution to it. Like there's just no, you know, this is something that there used to be laws in place against it. There used to be kind of federal regulations against it. They were often abused and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like there was kind of an expectation that you had to report things that were true, you know, and that those laws were kind of dismantled, but in the 1980s. But you know, like there has to be some sort of way that we can regulate as a society the information that flows around, you know, like that flows that is integral to the maintenance of a functioning society is like accurate and true information so that we can make informed decisions. Like if we don't take some sort of control over that, some sort of democratic control over the information, like we're gonna be in a endless spiral of fake news and misinformation campaigns and all that because there's just no way to stop it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I don't know what the right mechanism is to you know, prevent the spread of this type of disinformation. But the one thing that, you know, I hope Rogan's waking up to is, look, it's a false equivalent to say that the left and right are the same. They're not. Yeah. So I appreciate and respect the fact that he's open-minded. He wants to have people with all different opinions and, you know, ideological identities surrounding him. That's great. But I hope that he's at least keeping tabs on the number of right-wing guests he's had on who ended up being grifters, who ended up being liars. You know, like it's happened so many times. Like he's now openly calling Dave Rubin stupid on his show. And I'm glad, like he came to that realization. He's not a dumb guy. He came to that realization. He knows that Dave Rubin is what he is. But it's not just about Dave Rubin. Like I feel like people he regards as friends fill his head with all sorts of disinformation. It drives me nuts because sometimes he repeats it on his show and I'm just like, I really like this interview you're having, but like that kind of stuff turns reasonable people who do want to hear other opinions off. You know what I'm saying?
No, and people, I'm not the first one to point this out, but like Rogan is popular First of all, because he's a very talented interviewer, but also because he's pretty much an avatar for the way the average American interacts with politics and the news. He does kind of, most Americans are kind of like Rogan in their political beliefs. They have these kind of heterodox beliefs that don't adhere to the standard kind of partisan liberal versus like Democratic versus Republican divide that we see kind of in the discourse all the time. Most Americans are kind of like Rogan in that they reject both of the parties and they kind of hold heterodox beliefs around the other stuff, right? And Rogan is just kind of a perfect avatar for it in that he believes things like, that there should be single payer healthcare and Medicare for all is like a sort of like obvious thing to him, but that also like there's these like bands of Antifa roving around, like murdering people willy-nilly or whatever, but that's pretty much probably what, like, if you just kind of go out in the world and talk to the average American, they're more like him.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.